Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Geologist and lead monitoring scientist Professor Richard Robinson says the government must take note of the lessons from the 2021 eruption of Lasso Freya volcano to be more prepared for future eruptions. During the 2021 eruption of Lasso Freya, tons of ash was deposited across the island, which resulted in damage to houses, especially in the red and orange zones. In addition, during the first days of the eruption, there were disruptions to the water supply and electricity. Professor Robinson said, according to the Volcanic Explosivity Index, last year's eruption was on the lower scale, but it still resulted in widespread devastation across many communities.
It doesn't take much for that period of ashing to go on for longer than that. So you don't need to have anything much bigger than what you had for you to have serious disruption. If we are not prepared, our systems have to become more robust to the impact of ash. The impact of ash on the water supply, the impact of ash on the electricity power grid, the impact of ash on roofs. So when we move forward, as we develop, as we plan for sustainably living in the environment we live in, we need to factor those into the equation.
Professor Robinson says he hopes homes, water, and electricity management systems are rebuilt in a way that they can withstand the severity of the impact from volcanic ash.
In the region, we need to look more carefully on the impact of volcanic hazards, and particularly on the impact of ash from explosive volcanic eruptions on the systems that operate in the region, such that they become more resilient to the impact of these hazards. And it's possible for you to become more. So you could build houses that are not going to be collapsed so quickly. You could make sure that you have underground water supply, that your overland supply isn't that compromised, and you could do things about the electricity grid that would minimize its impact. There are things that we can do. We just need to do them. And this eruption will show you what not a little eruption, but a medium-sized eruption can do. We don't need to get a bigger one to show us. Let me learn from that.
And governments across the region are being urged to act more responsibly when it comes to meeting their financial commitment to the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center. And the call comes from Professor Robinson, who spoke to SVG-TV News today on the work the seismic research team is doing to monitor future activity at Lasso Freya. The Seismic Research Center is funded by 10 Caribbean countries, and contributions are split amongst the group, with Trinidad and Tobago being required to pay the largest contribution. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves announced that SVG government will be increasing the $400,000 contribution to the research center as a result of funding cutbacks by the Trinidad and Tobago government. Professor Robinson said the lack of financial resources has been putting significant pressure on the research center.
Understand that seismic, the agency that you saw manage the emergency in last year, is under serious stress when it comes to resources. I know the university is under stress too, but seismic in particular. And if the region needs a seismic, it needs to do better than that. Their governments need to do better than that. Your governments need to do better than that, because otherwise you will not have a seismic when the next eruption happens.
Professor Robinson said it often occurs that regional leaders only recognize the value of the Seismic Research Center in times of a disaster. He said that should not be the case.
You look at it in a global context. What we did last year, it's our peers in the international community is saying, fantastic, amazing. Yet, we're in a region where the people who say, yes, you're doing a fantastic, amazing job, they're not living up to it in a practical sense. Fortunately, St. Vincent is one of them that does that. There are a couple of others that does contribute. But often what tends to happen is only when there's something happen, like in the case of St. Vincent, that they see the need to actually put their money where their mouth is. I understand they have alternatives to the resources, but the fact is that you need an agency like Seismic, and you need to contribute to it, whatever your contribution is that you're committed to. Even if you can't pay all of it, pay some of it. Some of them don't pay at all, as I said, for decades. That is irresponsible.
The scientists also said they will not be able to properly monitor the hazards that pose a threat to the lives of Caribbean people if they are underfunded.
All we ask is for these territories to live up to the contributions that they committed themselves to. One of the problems we have had throughout, and as most people know, I was head of seismic for over 11 years. Most of my time was spent trying to find money to run seismic. It shouldn't be like that. Most of my time should be spent studying the thing that I'm a geologist, I'm a volcanologist. I'm supposed to be studying the rocks and studying what's happening so I could advise you. But most of my time is spent raising money. That's because the islands don't live up to their contributions. A number of them have not paid their contributions for decades. Some of them pay every now and then. Some of them are extremely good. That's fantastic, and I commend those. But there are others that don't. And if you have a pool that funds an agency, if all don't pay their amount to the pool, then that agency is constantly under pressure. And that is what has happened.
When the all clear was given for most residents in the red zone to return to their homes after the eruptions of La Soufrière volcano ended, many were overwhelmed by the state of their community. In Oya, a number of houses were damaged and destroyed, both by volcanic ash and the passage of Hurricane Elsa. After months of rebuilding and cleaning, residents are trying to return to a normal life 1 year later. They tell SVG-TV News while they are still encountering challenges, they are proud of how far they have come.
The Friday morning, I had to see like something like a big jet force. After I hear it, boom, 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 I start to pick up and start to heading for home. When I came here, I see this village done with. Yeah. I see this village done with. Yeah, because the condition of the village, I see they finished already. Crop not really come out to the fullest. You understand? They don't come out to the fullest. Sometimes you plant it's dead. But here I do. I take up all the ashes and dig the dot itself. Yeah. And plant it. When I plant it in the dot itself, it come. But can't plant it in the ashes. The suffering come back in green, everything come back normal. That is it. Yeah. Well, I thank Almighty God to keep us alive.
Everybody needs everything on.
I came back to visit very early, and it was horrible. I sat and I cried, and for one moment I realized that I might not be able to come back to live in beautiful Oya. I love Oya, born in Oya, married in Oya, living in Oya. And for a moment I really thought that we would not be able to come back here to live. We had to help ourselves. And look at it now. I'm back, I'm living in beautiful Oya. I think we are basically back to normal.
Now, moving on, the Ministry of Education today hosted a capacity building exercise for education officers at the Sunset Shows Hotel. Delivering remarks at the opening ceremony, Minister of Education Curtis King said the unfortunate events of the pandemic and the explosive eruption of La Soufrière volcano significantly put a dent in the education system, noting that these events forced the ministry to look into alternate delivery methods to continue the education process.
For the last 18 months or 2 years or so, being challenged with a worldwide health issue which catapulted into a pandemic, and which today, I hope we are at the tail end, but nevertheless, it has impacted significantly our education system. What these challenges have done is to force us to look critically at the delivery of our education service. I want to make this point that COVID-19, it did not introduce this conversation that we are having today on remodeling our education for resilience and sustainability.
As King urged participants to pay close attention to the session held so they will be better able to carry out the work after it ended, he pointed out that the ministry was struggling with issues that prompted them to take a deeper look into the education system long before COVID-19 and the volcanic eruption, as he identified some flaws in the system.
I want to make the point that even before COVID-19 and the volcano, we were grappling with issues of access. If we take, for example, one sector, a very important sector of our education system, early childhood education, despite the progress and the magnificent progress that we have made in the post-independence period, nevertheless, as a government, we have given our commitment to continue to expand the access for our early learners, to put them in a position where they could get a better start prior to their entry to primary education. So that the fact that we are making that commitment is an indication that even before pandemic, we were grappling with that issue of access. Yes, and despite the magnificent progress that we have made in terms of equity, we still have within our system where there is a challenge in getting resources to areas that face a deficit with regards to these resources.
And the National Quality Dialogue was held last Wednesday by the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality in collaboration with the SVG Bureau of Standards on enhancing cooperation between institutions and the agriculture sector. During the opening ceremony, Executive Director of the SVG Bureau of Standards, Ezra Ledger, said given the importance of agriculture to the economy, the activity was aimed at improving and developing quality and standards for the sector.
Infrastructure, and we are focusing principally on the agricultural sector. And of course, we know naturally that agriculture is a significant pillar within our GDP for our economic development, and as such, this activity is indeed vital so that we can continue to enhance, and promote our cultural sector so that at the end we can become, not only provide safe and quality food and food products, but also become more competitive, not only locally, but in the international market.
Chairman of the National Standards Council, Dr. Jean Saville Cummins, spoke on how SVG Bureau of Standards will lead the island's agriculture sector well into the future.
Like much of the Eastern Caribbean, our 21st century economy has seen a tremendous contribution from the service sector, particularly focused on the tourism market that exploits our beautiful and unique natural environment. And while the tourism development continues to expand, as a nation, we cannot ignore our potential as a productive sector, specifically our agricultural produce. Historically, producers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have benefited from special access to established regional and international markets. From colonial directives that guaranteed the export of Eastern Caribbean produce, to post-colonial preferential treatment that allowed our products to continue to flow into the UK right up until the EU forced a ban to the practice. Today, under the spectre of globalism, much fabled, and in the absence of this historical market access, our Vincentian products must compete on merit with products from every other corner of the world. Our only hope of success is for producers to lift their game by lifting their standards of operation. This discussion on national quality infrastructure is a focus on the creation of a pathway for local producers to access the external market, now broadened by the opening of the Argyle International Airport. Similarly, consideration must be made regarding the local ability to supply the increasing number of standards-minded commercial operations developing a footprint in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Chief Agriculture Officer Renato Gums said the absence of a land use policy is one of the main challenges affecting the island's agriculture sector. Speaking at the National Quality Dialogue last Wednesday, Gums outlined some of the challenges facing the sector, which he said they are working on to address, noting that the absence of the land use policy has had a negative impact on production.
You will have some land on the agriculture production today. Next year, you go back, you meet some houses, you meet a cemetery, you meet some playground, and very often they take the best agricultural lands. And that is one of our biggest challenges, and that sometimes, very often, forces production back into the areas that you really don't want agriculture production because of the damage to the environment. Sometimes the feeder roads are not good. So when you try to bring out produce from those areas, it affects the quality of the produce. So I always start with that issue of the absence of a land use policy. One is being developed, it's in draft, and I hope once it is passed, it would be enforced.
Climate change is also another major challenge that is affecting agriculture, and Gums said though there have been dialogue on reducing emission, persons have to live with the changing climate and adapt to it.
That we are getting less days of rainfall, but when you do get rain, you're getting more intense rainfall, and it resulted in more damage to people's property, maybe loss of life, more damage to the environment. And though there's all the talk about what we ought to be doing to reduce emission, we have to live with the changing climate, and we have to adapt to it. And that is why we have to find ourselves recommending certain things like storage of water, even adjust the metal you use in your construction to make things more resilient. So climate change is a challenge for us.
The Chief Agriculture Officer further explained how limited shipping arrangements and low level of technology have affected the quality and standards of production in SVG.
The actual shipping arrangement for produce, we lack a lot. The shipping is not consistent. So you can't pick up today and say, boy, let me ship some things to Tortola. You have to find out when a boat going to Tortola. Sometimes the boat until they leave on Wednesday. You put on your produce, it's Saturday they're going, you know. Yeah, they leave on Saturday, because they're waiting for something, waiting for some other produce. By the time they're ready to leave, your produce don't spoil. Shipping arrangement, and a lot of these boats don't carry refrigerated storage. So the challenges are great. And one of the things too is that, I mean, we have a aging farming community. We try our best to encourage young people to get into farming, but we have to prove to them, you know, it's profitable.
The local business community and Vincentians on a whole are mourning the death of two long-standing businessmen. Omroy Theophilus Mears, affectionately known as OT or the Little Man, passed away on Saturday, April 9, 2022 at age 76. Mears was the founder and owner of Finishing and Furnishing, one of the nation's leading furniture retailers in Kingstown. Over the years, he won the hearts of many as he was known to be very financially accommodating to those who were in need of furniture, but was also able to meet the required price. SVG-TV News understands that Mears died in the comfort of his home, watching cricket, his favorite sport. And residents of Beckway are mourning the death of businessman Sylvester Simmons, who passed away in his hometown of Beckway on Sunday afternoon. Simmons, who managed the reef, was instrumental in the Beckway Easter Regatta. He was once head of the Rotary Club on the island and had a short stint in politics. The businessman was also part owner of the first locally owned supermarket, S&W, the financial controller for the Beckway sandpit, and was instrumental in ensuring that the Iron Duke was refurbished and handed over to the National Trust. The management and staff of SVG Broadcasting Corporation expresses condolences to their family, friends, employees, and other loved ones. In other news, the SVG police force has launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeremiah Daniel, a 43-year-old laborer of Newgrounds. The police say preliminary investigations reveal that on Sunday, April 10th, Daniel and the assailant were headed home after attending a birthday party. On their way home, an altercation ensued between both men, and as a consequence, the assailant uses scissors to inflict a single stab wound to Daniel, who was rushed to the Georgetown Hospital, where he subsequently succumbed to his injury. A post-mortem examination is expected to be carried out on the deceased to ascertain the exact cause of death. SVGTV News understands that Jeremiah Bacchus, a 41-year-old laborer also of Newgrounds, appeared at the Kingstown Magistrate Court this morning, where the charge with malice aforethought did cause the death of Daniel by an unlawful act was read to him by Senior Magistrate Ricky Bonnet. The matter was adjourned to April 19th and transferred to the Serious Offences Court. And the South Central Division recorded its second road fatality for the year 2022 on Sunday, April 10th. Dead is Christopher Roberts, a 44-year-old maintenance man of Great House, Lomans Leeward. Reports are that Edward Joseph, a 33-year-old landscaper of Choppins, was driving motor vehicle P6822, a silver Toyota Corolla, along the Annisville Public Road from Villa towards the roundabout. Upon reaching the vicinity of the Spot Bar at Annisville, Joseph reportedly collided with Christopher Roberts, who was allegedly crossing the street from the Spot Bar towards the Trotman's building. Roberts received serious injuries about his body and was transported to the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital via an ambulance for medical attention. However, he later succumbed to his injuries. Joseph is currently assisting the police with their investigations. Investigations into the matter are ongoing. And in other news now, with the Easter festivities this weekend, Chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation, Ricardo Adams, is reminding Vincentians to ensure Vinci Mass 2022 held in its traditional format. The island needs to maintain a low COVID-19 positivity rate. Adams noted that they were in the process of planning for a Vinci Mass last year. However, with the explosive eruptions of La Soufrière volcano, all hopes for the festival were deferred. Adams said that it is evident there is a culture magma bottled up inside of many Vincentians that they need to release. However, he is urging everyone to make responsible decisions to avoid another COVID-19 spike.
But still be sensible, still try to be safe, because the ministry has given certain guidelines, and if we exceed certain parameters, then that triggers and I say we as a nation exceed certain parameters, then that kind of triggers back some of the controls. So we're pushing a kind of vibe, you know, let's be socially responsible, let's be medically responsible, so that we're saying keep it under 5 so that we can keep the festival alive. We've seen events that have happened in the last couple of weeks, even while we were under the restrictions. Yeah. And we've seen mega events happening, and we've not as yet seen the spike or the massive outflow from those events. Right. So we're hoping, we're keeping a really close eye on what's going to happen over Easter, because my understanding is that Easter is going to be a bumper Easter. And I'm really hopeful that when we come out of Easter, even if there is a slight uptick, that it's something that remains manageable and then sets the way.
Adams was speaking on the API's Morning Talk program and not SVG-TV's Viewpoint program. In response to those who are against the hosting of Vincy Mass this year, Adams said the festival stands to benefit all and not just the CDC.
Easter weekend, I'm pretty sure that all of the churches and so will be able to gather and celebrate the Easter festival or the Easter weekend. And you know, we sometimes think of Vincy Mass or Carnival as this little capsule, but Vincy Mass and Carnival affects everybody. The minivan drivers get to carry a few more people in and out of the regions. The hairdressers get to do business. The nail salons get to do business. The boutiques, right? So we always say that Vincy Mass, while we at CDC are tasked with the development and to a certain extent the facilitation of Vincy Mass, the entire nation is what comes together, because when somebody gets on an aircraft and comes to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for Vincy Mass, they land at the AIA and they're greeted by the persons at the AIA, and they have a part to play in Vincy Mass because they begin the experience.
Today, April 12th, 2022, is being celebrated as Garifuna Survival Day, which marks the 225th anniversary of the first arrival of some 2,000 Garinuga to Roatan, Honduras, after being exiled by the British from their homeland, St. Vincent. April 12, 1797, marked the culmination of decades of bitter struggle by the Garinogo to protect their lands against British colonists who desired these choice properties to expand their sugar plantations. As part of today's anniversary celebrations, observed under the theme 225 Years of Survival and Resilience, members of the Ovia Heritage Organization, Inc. went to Chate, located between Owie and Fancy, where a small remembrance ceremony was held.
Yeah, a strong Garifuna who fought for justice too. We remember Bloody Brave and remember what he did. The spirit of Chateauya within us live today. The spirit of Chateauya within us live today. Garifuna live, Garifuna live. We go tell the whole wide world, Garifuna live. And today we are remembering all those people who are living across the sea, who are our relatives, and today they will be commemorating this day as they join together to relive the spirit of Garifunas. So today we are joining with them and have our own celebration here in Chate of Ovia. Our foreparents told us that Joseph Chate was living in a cave high up in the mountainside in Chate. And that is why this area was given that name. And it was used as a lookout for him so that he can see whenever his enemies are approaching. So we have journeyed from Ovia to Chate to an area that he used to occupy to remember those Garifunas today.